Hi, welcome to Who Will We Be? My name is Nina V, and I'm your host today. For these past couple of weeks, we have been doing episodes with guests, but today we're going to switch it up, and today it is just me. The conversation that we are going to have today is a conversation that I've really wanted to talk about and really just talk out loud about. I don't necessarily know if there's a question, I don't necessarily know if there's an answer because I don't know that there is a question. But we will be talking about forgiveness and surrender, which seem like very heavy topics. But we're going to, seeing that I am not like a biblical scholar, and I am really just referencing my life, this is going to be as conversational as possible. So, recently, I started therapy. I started therapy maybe around 6 weeks ago. I've had 4 sessions. And in these 4 sessions, number one, I realized that 1 hour is just simply not enough. It gets to 35 minutes, and I'm like, girl, our time is dwindling, and I had 5 more things on the list, Puka. Like, hello? However, something that came up, or a feeling that came up after I recently went through just a very interesting experience is a feeling that seems to always catch up to me. Like I cannot there for some reason I am unable to box it up, forgive, box it up and put it in a corner. That box always opens back up. And that is the relationship that I have with my father. I used to be a daddy's girl. Even though I had an absentee father, I really relied on society and TV shows and movies to show me what my relationship with my dad was supposed to look like. And it never looks like that. I saw him sometimes when I went to Houston, and I never really wanted to go. It was filled with anxiety and apprehension, and he just is not a father. Like, he does not know how to, I guess, have conversations with kids, or it just wasn't fun. It was never a fun experience. When watching shows like That's So Raven, The Parent Trap, and so many other shows, I found that I was comparing him to people, number one, that these are made up characters. But number two, I was in my head trying to figure out what I wanted a dad to mean to me, what I wanted a dad to do for me. Like in my life, as I'm living in a single parent household with my mom, majority of the people in my family are women. I am immersed in this matriarchal society in my reality. What can a man do? And I've yet to really answer that question, even at 25. Of like, okay, so what do men contribute for real? Like, what are we doing here? And over time, my mom grew this village, and some of her friends and things like that had husbands, and um she had best friends, or whatever the case may be, that became my uncles and became my father figures. However, there's only so much these men could contribute to a child that is outside of their home. And from that, I grew this bias that I found men untrustworthy. And I was fantasizing of this family dynamic that wasn't mine. There's a big chunk of my childhood, like 14 years. I'm going to even count into my adulthood, from being 10 to being around 24, where I was experiencing and going through the motions of the many stages of grief. And between 10 and 12, I was angry with my father. Between 13 and 15, I feel like I was bargaining with him. I would be like, well, why can't you? And like, do you love me? And well, maybe I should apologize, and maybe I should be a better daughter. Through 16 and 18, I went through a depression. I was trying to get into college, and the only way that he would give me access to his to dependent benefits, as he was in the military, the only way that I could be a dependent and receive those benefits was if he was absolved of all the child, like, what is that called? All of his child support debt. And of course, me and my mother did not want to do that. We did not want to absolve him of his responsibility. At 19, I was angry. And at 20, I feel like I found acceptance because I had just moved on. But somehow this second wave of anger came. And when this second wave of anger came, it is something that I remember the most. I feel like it is the time period when I really was able to articulate how disappointed and how hurt I was by him. I remember we had two conversations. I'm trying to think about which one was first. I know which one was first. Freshman year at University of Houston, I'm in the dining hall and I'm eating whatever. About a couple months before this, he called me. And the reason that I went to University of Houston was because he retired in Texas. And if you know anything about military benefits, if you were as a military personnel, if you retire in Texas, that's where your benefits or your children's benefits for college or education, that's where they count. So I wanted to go to Oklahoma State, but he was like, no, go to a school in Texas and you can use my benefits. The caveat behind that was he also had to be absolved from child support debt. So I'm in my dorm at University of Houston. It's freshman year, maybe September, because is this before Harvey? Okay, it doesn't matter. Freshman year, I'm in my dorm. He calls me and he's like, hey, what are you doing? Where are you? And I'm like, I'm in Houston in my dorm room. And he's like, huh? And I'm like, yeah, I'm at U of H. And I don't really remember how the rest of that conversation went, but I remember him being shocked. I remember him being shocked, and the way that I received it was he was shocked that he wasn't big. One monkey don't stop no motherfucking show. You hear me? You hear me? He thought that he was bigger than the program. The way that I cannot explain to y'all the way that we went back and forth before I went to college about this child support and him giving me benefits or whatever. He decided not to give me benefits. And with that, he thought that I wasn't going to be able to go to college. So when he calls me and it's about a month into the school year and I'm in college, he was shocked. And I remember being like, damn, his ego, the narcissism is so big that he was willing to stop my education to prevent me from being educated any further, from exploring higher education, because he didn't get what he wanted. Because he wasn't absolved of his responsibility as he was being negligent and as he abandoned me, all this kind of stuff is my childhood. He kind of wanted that responsibility of that to be wiped away. So he calls me and he's shocked. After that, we hang up the phone and time goes by. I'm not calling his ass for nothing. That's for fuck sure. So time is going by within that first semester. And my mom is like, hey, we're still trying to figure out how to get access to some benefits because she's a single mother. And I'm accumulating this debt from all these subsidized, unsubsidized loans, whatever the fuck that means, and all this kind of shit. And she's like, hey, I think that maybe if you ask him instead of her asking him, that he wouldn't ask that of me. He wouldn't ask me for permission to absolve that child support debt. So I call him one day. He doesn't answer. Okay, cool. I'll leave him a voicemail. I'm in the dining hall. It's at night. It has to be past 7 p.m. because it's dark outside, pitch black. He calls me and he's like, hey, I heard your missed call. What do you need? Or I got your missed call. What do you need? And I'm like, hey, I wanted to have this conversation with you about these benefits. I was like, my mom was telling me about these benefits. I was wondering if you would give them to me or blah, blah. And he was like, of course he got defensive. And the conversation ended with me not receiving the benefits. Within that conversation, his argument was that if he was going to supply benefits for this stage of my life, then my mom did her job of doing the part of 18 and under, and that he was going to do his part of me being 18 and older. And so in this conversation of him describing that idea, he compared himself to my mother. Child, as soon as he said, and like your mother did this, so I can do this, and your mom, blah, 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 and your mom can't support you. And it's, child, I cannot tell you all the cuss words that came out of my mouth. Girl, I'm in the dining hall still. In the dining hall. CV dining hall at the bottom of Moody. And I'm on the phone. And he starts comparing himself to my mom. And I go, nigga, you're an absentee father. Don't you ever compare yourself to my mother. And I forget where I am. I black out. I forget where I am. I'm yelling at the top of my lungs in this dining hall. I look up and people are looking at me. I leave my plate there. Girl, shit, fuck that. I'm walking out the dining hall, down that ramp, and I am digging in that ass. Okay? Going in. I'm cussing at him like a dog on the street. And after that, we don't talk again for 4 years. And I hadn't yelled that loud in a minute. Anger runs in my family. And I am just a really nice and sweet woman. So a lot of people don't suspect that of me. But I'm real nice with the cuss words. I can really get into, if you want to get into it, oh baby, we can get into it. I try not to get into it because I'm a Libra. I try to keep things copacetic. I try to keep it cute. But if you want to get into it, we can get into it. And that day he wanted to get into it with me. So I said, oh, okay, so if you want to get into it, I got the anger from right now and I got the anger for the past 10 years. If we really want to sit here and be honest, that anger had been boiling up. Like I said, the anger had been boiling up for 10 years. And when it came out of the box, it was almost like I could not put it back in. I didn't even think to put it back in. I didn't even think that anger would spill out into different aspects of my life and different ways that I carry myself and the different ways that I react when I'm alone to inconveniences and to people and to all this different stuff. I didn't think that it was going to be that big. I didn't think that it would take that much up of my soul and of my spirit. So earlier this year, I'm driving down the freeway and of course, somebody does something and immediately this road rage comes out of me. And it's not like I'm irritated. It's not that. It's not irritation. It is rage. It is rage. And I'm in my car going off. And it was like I was angry 1 second, and then God said the next second, do you hear yourself? Do you see yourself? And in that moment, I realized that I had been holding on to all this anger because I had not forgiven him. And forgiveness, he don't got to know that I forgave him. He doesn't have to know anything about where I am, who I am, about what stage of my life that I am. If I understand, if I don't understand, is he alive or dead? Who the fuck knows? But I heard God say, do you see how he has taken over a part of your life? I'm sorry. I'm trying not to cry. Do you see how's his actions, how that hurt, how that anger has taken up a part of your soul, so much so that I would characterize myself as angry. as I'm living in anger. I'm constantly a pot at that simmer stage, about ready to boil. And all it takes is a little salt. All it takes is somebody to hit that notch one time, and I start boiling over. It's like, do you see the way that you are sitting? Do you feel the tension in your neck? Do you feel the tension in your body? Do you feel your head pounding from the amount of anger that you are feeling? And immediately I started to pray. I started asking God for the strength to forgive. I started asking God for the courage and for the grace to see myself and the courage to give myself mercy. The thing about forgiveness is that it doesn't last. And that's been a major lesson of this year, is that forgiveness doesn't last. You forgive somebody and then something else reminds you or triggers you about whatever that situation is, whoever that person is, and I get mad all over again. And it happens all over again. And it's not to say that you can't recount events as they happened. It's not to say that your reality is to be fixed or is to be structured in any different way than how it actually is. But the thing that I've realized is that one day you will wake up mad, sad, disoriented, all over again. All over again. And all over again, you will have to decide to forgive them again. And that's the decision that counts. When I woke up last week, and I woke up like, God damn, niggas are so disappointing. I find them to lack integrity. They are untrustworthy. They do not protect and provide as they say that they should, or as I think that they should, or how disappointing. I realize that I am projecting all of the anger and all the feelings that I have about my father onto every man on earth, specifically every black man. And to forgive him specifically, to forgive my father all over again, that's the decision that really counts. That's the decision that pulls me from righteousness to liberation. That's the decision that pulls me out of anger and into surrender. Choosing peace is hard. Choosing mercy is hard. Giving yourself grace to feel everything all over again, and also understanding that you can't live there. It can be true, but that understanding or that scenario is not somewhere to dwell is difficult. And honestly, I don't have like I said, I don't necessarily have a question. I don't have an answer. I don't know what that looks like 10 years from now. I don't know what the procedure looks like to ask for that grace and to, I just know that as soon as I catch myself, as soon as God knocks at the door and reminds me, I have to surrender and take a few deep breaths and consciously let go of all of the frustration and all of the disappointment and all of the hurt and all of the anger, just so that I can continue my life and not feel so heavy. This ain't for them. This ain't for him. This is for me. This forgiveness and the surrender and the letting go and the liberation, that is so that I wake up and I breathe lighter. That is so that I wake up and I don't ask myself, am I worthy of love? That is not a question that I deserve to constantly ring around on a hamster wheel over and over again in my head. I don't deserve to carry that burden. I don't deserve to carry his guilt. I don't deserve to hold on to what I assume to be his reasoning for not loving me enough, for not seeing me, for not taking care of me. And it's also not my responsibility to rationalize who he is or what kind of father he would have been. That's not my responsibility. And so as you think about that one person or that many people or those scenarios that get you so boiling hot, so much so that if you really think about it, you can identify the same anger you feel in that situation and the same anger that you feel in this other part of your life. When are you going to surrender? When are you going to let go? Have you chosen to forgive? Have you chosen to forgive before and it hit you again and you said fuck it and you decided to sit with it again? Where are you with that? I was watching this video on TikTok, and I think there's an idea of like you have to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. Sometimes you have to go through a scenario, you have to go through a time period in your life, and the only way to surrender is to surrender on your knees. The only way to let it go is to be crying and begging for the Lord to take it, you know? Um, but in those times that something triggers you and it pops up all over again and you decide to forgive again, those are the times that you learn how to surrender on your feet, and that's why they count the most. I used to only hand things over to God when I was crying on my knees. I used to only tell God I can't do it anymore. God, I don't have anything left in me when I have dragged my own self through the mud. There's a bliss to being dedicated to moving on, dedicated to not doing it alone, dedicated to knowing that there is someone above you stronger than you and willing to hold that burden, willing to hold those feelings, willing to manage that understanding, willing to be angry for you. The anger just doesn't go away. God knows what he did. God knows what kind of man that he decided to be. And God can forgive him. God probably has forgiven him. And maybe that has given him solace to move on and to carry on and to do better. But I know that God knows why I'm angry. And because God knows why I'm angry, God has told him why I'm angry. And he can run away from me. He can neglect me. He can abandon me. But he can neglect and abandon God. But that does not mean that God has abandoned him. That does not mean that God has absolved him of his responsibility, of the accountability that we all need, that we all have. As the saying goes, you do better when you know better. If you knew better, you would do better. You know better. You know better than to let them fester in your life. You know better than to give your life over to emotion or give your life over to hurt just because you want to stand on your soapbox. You deserve a life of ease. You deserve a life of softness. You deserve a life of love. I hope that you can give that to yourself. I hope that you decide to give that to yourself. Thank you so much for joining us on Who Will We Be? Who will you be when you decide to forgive, to surrender, to let go, and to transform that righteousness into liberation? Thanks for joining me on this very I tried to say that I was going to keep it light in the beginning, but for this deep conversation, I appreciate you for listening. I love you. I hope you have a great week.